Welcome, dear listeners, or should I say, dear viewers, for another installment of Twilight Abridged. The chapter begins with Bella attempting to make sense of the night before. The weather was emo, just like her. Also, there was a fog, which is another similarity entirely. It was unusually foggy, and the air was almost smoky with it. A tad on the verbose side, but since that's typically how fog is, I guess it's just her being a little over-descriptive. The mist was... What mist? She said it was a fog. Another sign of thesaurus rape. For those of you who are confused by this, here's how it breaks down. You have fog, and you have mist. Because they're similar in concept as how they're formed, they're usually denoted as being synonyms, but mist is decidedly lighter than fog. So if the air is almost smoky with it, it's fog, not mist. Moving on. Despite Edward's constantly saying that it's not good for them to be near each other, the dumb shit offers Bella a ride to school. Then they had a conversation in which Edward said, and made it known, that he considers her delicate, i.e., weak, that her reactions to what he tells her are unnatural, i.e., Meyer can't characterize worth shit, and not hearing her thoughts is bothering him. Although, if he could, it wouldn't be any better for him because typically her thoughts aren't that far removed from the thoughts of the teenage girls that he constantly looks down upon. Then Meyer does a bit more thesaurus raping to make Edward seem deep by having him use ostentatious to describe Rosalie's car instead of extravagant, grandiose, flamboyant, or pretentious. As if her car were any more showy than his silver Volvo. I guess obviously a silver Volvo will fit in a lot better. Then Jessica gives back Bella's jacket because she's actually nice, and Edward makes her swoon. Then Edward and Bella hook up on the way to class, and he makes Bella swoon. Then there's a bit about Mike and Jessica for filler, but this is abridging and it's not important, so After class, the fog was pretty much gone, but there were oppressing clouds. Not oppressive, mind you, because the clouds were oppressing. Because clouds can do that in Meyerland. Then Jessica tries to learn what she can about everything going on, and we're subjected to what Meyer presumes to be girl talk. And I'm not one of those girls. And apparently, Edward being a vampire who wanks about being what he is and trying to make up for it means there's more to him than being a pretty boy in Meyer's mind. Not particularly. That's simply an undeveloped stereotype. Again, Bella has lunch with Edward and asks him more questions. And then Edward asks her if she thinks she cares more for him than he does for her. Which, as you might recall from the chapter before, yeah, Meyer's full of shit. And then Bella accuses Edward of dazzling her, which is really another bit of Meyer doing more thesaurus rape. Poor thesaurus. Because a better term for that would have been overwhelming. We're not even chapter 13 yet and she's already using dazzling. When Edward gets her to admit that she really thinks that, he tells her that she's wrong. What the fuck? And then Edward specifically tells Bella that subsequently she isn't ordinary. So all you fuckheads out there who still think Bella is an average teenager and that if Edward were real you would have a chance in hell of getting with him, too fucking bad. Then Edward says that he cares about her more than she does for him because he's willing to leave if it's what's best for her. Which he has been saying all along that it would be, but we see how that's worked out so far. And if you think this is foreshadowing for what happens in New Moon, think again. New Moon wasn't even thought of when Twilight was being written. Then Bella admits that, unlike her having turned all the guys who had been nice to her in regards to the prom down, she wouldn't have turned down Edward. Which only goes to further prove how much of a superficial bitch she is. Then Edward gets her to be open to not going to Seattle on Saturday, which she'd been planning to do for quite some time. Controlling much? Of course, she's too dazzled to turn him down. And he gave the illusion of giving her the choice, of course, but being over 100 years old and already knowing she was dazzled by him, anyone with any comprehension at all would know that, well, he knows exactly what to say to get what he wants. She even admits in the prose that she couldn't argue with him. So don't even bother trying to argue that he isn't controlling. It's all right here. She even tried to get him to let her drive, but he simply changed the subject entirely. He admits to hunting bears out of season, yet another instance of his breaking the law, then feeds her a line about a loophole, which wouldn't stand up in court. He says that they make sure to hunt in areas with an overpopulation of predators, which is another tip-off that Mari doesn't have a fucking clue about any of this. In a natural environment, there will never be an overpopulation of predators. Something would have to cause a massive decrease in the number of their prey for that to happen. And that's not the case here. So fuck you, Meyer. I got you again. Then Edward admits that they do have weapons, which was the entire basis of his alleged loophole. So fuck you, Meyer, yet again. Then Bella asks if she could see them hunt sometime, and he becomes angry and scares her into submission. Yet another evidence of his being controlling and emotionally abusive. Then he forces the subject to be dropped entirely. Thank you for joining me for yet another installment of Twilight Abridged, brought to you by the good people of TwilightSucks.com. Twilight sucks, because if Edward were a real man, well, he'd have several restraining orders and ordered by the judge to attend sessions with a psychotherapist.